50 years is a long time for anybody to do anything, anybody to accomplish anything, but it's particularly important if someone can begin 50 years back and 50 years later they are still thriving and doing something real good and fortunate for the community. Well, the Reverend Dr. Walter Glover has been preaching and in the ministry for 50 years, and I think that it would not be robbery if we would get one of his colleagues and one of his supporters and one of his compatriots to come in and talk to him about all of his experiences and all of the ups and downs of being a pastor for 50 years. And that colleague is none other than Reverend Christopher Cavendish, who's going to come in and have a fireside chat with Reverend Glover as it relates to 50 years of ministry. So the next person that you see in this seat will be Reverend Christopher Cavendish interviewing Dr. Walter Glover. We'll be right back.
Well, indeed, it is an honor and a humble privilege to share in this moment of dialogue. First, I do want to acknowledge the support and the participation in this 50 years of celebration. I just want to take the time to acknowledge Mr. Alex Habersham with a call to action for allowing us to come and to share in this moment of dialogue. And yet, as we begin to kind of talk about 50 years, that's 5 decades.
Yes.
50 years of ministry, calling that you have fulfilled for 50 years. Kind of share with us, or share with me and the listening audience, what does 50 years of ministry entail and look like for you?
It has been a long journey, a journey that has been filled with bitter and sweet, but more sweet, I think, than bitter. To go 50 years in anything, as Mr. Habersham has said, and still be there and be with it, it's phenomenal. I give credit firstly to the Lord, for it has been 5 decades of commitment, perseverance, and also one that has been so dear to my heart. And because of the fact God called me 50 plus years ago, and he has enabled me to stand firm, to lead his people, to be a servant leader to not only my congregations, but to the people all over.
Well, you talk about the call. How old were you when you felt the Lord's calling, when you heard the phone ring from heaven?
Oh, Lord.
What was that experience like for you? What did you see? What did you feel during that moment of receiving that call?
Yeah, it was a shaking experience. The Lord dealt with me in dreams. He even dealt with me as far as my eating. You wanted to eat and couldn't eat because I had not given in. And I remember telling my mother at the age of 14 that the Lord had called me to preach. And it was then when I accepted the call, when everything began to brighten up for me. And at 14, I began preaching in July of '68, and I turned 15 in August of '68. I was ordained at 16.
Wow.
I started pastoring at 17.
Wow. Wow.
And I have been pastoring ever since then till now.
Wow. Wow. So as you look back in Rewind,
Mm-hmm.
who were some of those figures in ministry that kind of laid the foundation for you, that were mentors, spiritual coverings for you, as well as what church were you a part of when you accepted the call and came up in the ranks of ministry?
I was am a member of St. Luke
St. Luke,
Baptist Church.
Haywood,
Hey, yeah, but we were on Emory Highway,
Emory Highway. Okay.
where the health department is.
Okay.
The church sat right there.
I've heard that.
Yeah. And the Reverend G.N. Ned, who was an unlettered man, but a powerful preacher.
I've heard.
People came from all over the city on first and third Sundays at 2:30 to hear Reverend Ned preach. And he is the one who licensed and ordained me at the period of time he was moving out as a retired pastor, and Reverend Stinson was coming in. But Reverend G. and Ned was my pastor. But the men who laid the foundation for me, and I can name 4 or 5 of them. The late Reverend W.M. Hall, who was pastor of Mount Moriah Baptist Church and founder of Mount Sinai Baptist Church, and who was moderator of 2 associations here in Middle Georgia.
Wow.
We lived a couple doors from him.
Okay.
And of course I stayed with him, Reverend E.S. Evans, Reverend Van J. Malone. Those men really kept me close. They took me as a son. I was very submissive to them. And as a result of that, I've enjoyed a great deal of success, if you want to call it success, as a pastor preacher, knowing how to deal with people. If it were not for those men that I stayed around, Reverend J.A. Holston.
Wow.
Those men. And there were others. I'm not saying because I'm looking over there at Alex now, but his father, Reverend A.I. Habersham.
Wow.
Yeah. He revered me and respected me and took me on. He would always say, "Hey boy." Yeah. So I'm grateful.
Wow.
And that's the key to these young preachers who are coming on. You need to find a mentor.
Right.
Yeah. And you need to stay close to them because they've been where you're coming.
Right.
And they can shed so much light on life itself and on church life and just dealing with people.
So how was that for you being 17, pastoring church, older members who look upon you as the little boy preacher? How was that for you? How was that experience?
Well, to some they said that he's too young.
Okay.
My very first church, and I have to mention that name, Reverend G.T. Terry, who lived above us there out in Shirlington. If you would say he willed that church to me in Perry, Greater Union Baptist.
Greater Union. Yes, I've seen your picture on the wall.
Okay, all right. He said to his parishioners on his dying bed, "I will not be able to come back, and I want you all to call my boy," that's what he would say. He wouldn't say Walter, he would say Waller. Y'all call him. Well, that was in January. I carried on the service for January for him. He died at the end of January. I went, but they asked me to come back in February and March to carry on the services. And the first week of April, they called me as pastor. There was no other preacher between me and Reverend Terry. Passing served that church. And I stayed there 5 years, 4 months, and 1 Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
At that time, I was a student at Fort Valley State College.
Okay.
And so it was in close proximity of my work.
Right.
And then right behind that, I was called to Greater Friendship in Fort Valley.
Okay.
On the Willow Lake Road. And so at the age of 19, I built that church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the Lord has really done wonders with me.
So from Greater Friendship, Fort Valley, and I know that your feet eventually got settled
Yeah.
in Macon, and I know many people probably don't know or can't recall that you even pastored Unionville.
That's right.
Missionary Baptist Church, where Dr. Ike Mack served when I was
That's right.
pastor.
I stayed there 4 years. I had 2 churches at one time in this city, Greater Zion Hill and Unionville.
So how did you get to Greater Zion Hill?
Greater Zion Hill, Reverend Dr. Fleming,
Okay.
who was my cohort, my friend, he left going to Atlanta.
Wow.
Well, I was pastoring in Perry, and Zion Hill Church was having service in the afternoon. So I was able to go to Perry every Sunday morning, come to Zion Hill in the afternoon. Well, when Unionville called me, they were on Pinona.
Correct.
I gave up Perry and still kept Zion Hill in the afternoon.
Okay.
And in 1980, the Lord spoke to me and said, settle down with one place. And I took Zion Hill, and I was criticized by a lot of my friends to say, Glove is smart, and he's educated, and he's this and that, but he ain't too smart. He left for a big church to take a little church. But look at us now.
Right.
I've been at that one church 44 years.
Wow. So as you look at like the church culture of yesterday, and you know, it's almost as if the men that came through that I even grew up as a little boy, you know, seeing E.S. Evans,
Yes, sir.
V.J. Malone,
Yes, sir.
and those men, it's almost as if they're not made the same or built the same.
No.
What is so different about those men where they could preach, you know, 47 revivals and, you know, not just a week revival,
Yeah.
but 2-3
2
weeks.
weeks,
you know,
2
'cause
weeks.
Now we've gone to, you know,
2 nights, 1 night. Yeah.
You know, how was that for you as you kind of look back on those days of old and then looking at how things have shifted?
Well, those men, it goes back to what I said in my opening statement. They were authentic. They were committed. They had a heart for the gospel. They had a heart for people, and they did it with all of their might. Things have changed, cultures have changed. We got a new preacher out now. We got a new group now. You said that maybe the new preacher, the young preacher maybe, they have their own agenda. To them, I'm a little old-fashioned, but I'm a chip off of that good old solid block that will stand. And there really isn't but 1 or 2 of us maybe left of that crowd. Pastor Eddie Smith and I, we came along together. Pastor Aaron Jones,
Right.
he's in Philadelphia, and then Fleming is in Atlanta. But all of those men left the city, and Eddie and I stayed here. So really, we are that group of men that we are the only 2. Reverend Jacob Parker, who is father of us all now.
Yes.
He's not actively engaged in the ministry, but he has been.
Right.
But those of us who are active off of that old block, Eddie Smith and myself.
Well, I can definitely say that that you guys are a testament to God's faithfulness.
Oh, yes, sir.
You are definitely an inspiration. But you know, when I look at you, you know, I see a picture of a mountain, a picture of a lion, picture of an ox or an oak tree. Because to so many, you are a man of strength.
Yeah.
You are a man of great dignity who has a heart not only just for the church, but also for the community.
Sure.
And so as we gather and talk and dialogue about 50 years, how do you think that we can move forward to extend the life and the legacy of the church that seems to be on a decline or being diminished in some shape, form, or fashion? How can we extend the life and legacy of the church?
Well, we've got to go back, Pastor.
We
got to go back to the old landmark.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is there has to be more authenticity
Yeah.
in the pulpit, and because everything trickles down from there.
Right.
There has to be more of as Brother Havisham stated, the singing of the hymns,
All right.
the old metered hymn that stirred the hearts of the people.
Common meter.
Common meter,
Short meter.
short meter,
I'm with
long meter.
I'm with you.
Yeah, some churches don't sing any of that now. It has sort of turned the corner. We're trying to do everything look like to please the younger crowd that's coming in. Well, we've got to be in touch with the times.
Right.
I agree wholeheartedly. But I think we should still teach our young folk that it was what a friend we have in Jesus. All our sin. And raise it. Must Jesus bear the cross alone and all the world go free?
Right.
And raise it. They don't know what it is to raise us a hymn because everything is clap, 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 you know, rocking and moving.
Right.
But we've got to go back to that. And we've got to go back to authentic preaching, not showmanship. No. Not up there to perpetuate yourself.
Right.
Or to show your scholastic ability. No, authentic preaching, real preaching, soul searching, soul moving preaching.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where I think we're lax in that area now.
And I can't say, based upon you making that statement, you know, I can even reflect back in my mind. May will be 19 years that I've been in ministry. But what has helped me to be effective in pastoring a 5-generation church is because I grew up learning how to raise hymns.
Right.
And common meter, short meter. You know, charge to keep I have. Guide me, O thy great Jehovah.
Yeah.
And so it was those principles that I was able to learn coming up in St. Matthew under C.J. Andrews, as well as my father, Eugene, the late Eugene Cabanis. As you continue to kind of reflect and we kind of dialogue, what would the 50-year in ministry Walter, and I don't mean no disrespect, but I'm calling you by your first name. But what would the 50-year of ministry Walter tell the first year of ministry Walter, the boy? What would he say to him?
I would say to him, first of all, be faithful to the gospel. Because he that preaches the gospel should live by it. And the Lord will give you longevity. And love people. And stay humble at the feet of Jesus. And find you a mentor.
Awesome. Well, I think that our time may be somewhat coming to a close, but as we kind of turn the corner, you've not only been in ministry for 50 years, pastoring for 40 plus years. What are the persons, as it relates to like family, I know you've been married to the beloved Dr. Beverly.
47 years.
47 years. Okay.
She has been a tower of strength.
Say it.
Yes.
Yeah.
My mother, my grandfather, who was a devout deacon of Greater Elizabeth Baptist Church. And my sister, who's there with me in ministry, who helps me. And of course our son. And that other family. But family has supported me from day one. And I'm grateful. I've been preaching, y'all keep saying 50, it has been 50.
Plus.
It'll be 51 in June.
In June. So 50 plus.
Yes, that.
51 years.
Yes, that.
Well, indeed, I applaud you and I celebrate you. I'm just glad to be a part of your life, your ministry, to be considered your beloved godson,
Yes, sir.
in whom I hope you're well pleased.
Well pleased.
So,
Well pleased.
But definitely, just even with me being able to make the transition to Pastor New Hope, I will always be indebted to you, as well as Pastor David Stanley, for just even helping me to even get where I am and pastoring such a historic church.
Who preached your ordination?
Reverend Dr. Walter Glover Jr.
I just want to...
Yeah, you preach my ordination.
All right.
Yeah. So that's it. Is that it?
Yes.
Well, okay, all right. Well, I think we got a blooper right there, but we good. But once again, we want to thank the Honorable, the infamous, the great Alex Habersham, for allowing us to come in and to share on this day called Call to Action. And so we are located presently at the historic site of the the Ruth Hartley Mosley Home. Women's Center, and so we're just indeed grateful for this opportunity to be here and to share on this, the Lord's Day.
Thank you.
Don't forget, March the 30th is the day that we will celebrate 50 years officially at the Unionville Missionary Baptist Church on Houston Avenue at 12 p.m. March the 30th, 2019. You don't want to miss this day of celebration with the reception to follow. And so be with us as we share during that time frame. God bless you, God keep you, and may heaven continue to smile upon you. Take care. And at this time, I will now turn this back over to the official host of this show, in the personality of Mr. Alex Habersham. God bless you.
We've got a very, very important event coming up to help celebrate a very, very important legend in this community, in the person of Miss Ruth Hartley Mosley, whose house I'm sitting in right now. And I'm sitting in her house because she was a phenomenal woman, did a lot for the community, and we are just keeping her legacy and her dreams alive. Now, this event that's coming up is a special event to kind of memorialize her as a legend in this community. And Miss Jerry McCord, who's the executive director, gonna tell you all about it. But before she does that, I want to encourage everybody to come and support this phenomenal lady and this phenomenal institution. Miss Jerry, talk about that event you got coming up.
Well, we got coming up a benefit concert celebrating a legacy and celebrating a legend and preserving the legacy of Ruth Hartley Mosley. As Mr. Habersham just stated, we are in Mrs. Mosley's home, a home she moved in 1917. And her vision and wishes for this home after she was deceased is to have programs and a facility that would empower women and children. And we are really looking forward to the community to coming out and supporting this event. Mrs. Mosley, a visionary, I could describe her in so many words, a visionary, a trailblazer, a woman before her time. She was just such an inspiration to this community, and we want to make sure that our community give Mrs. Mosley the respect that she deserved. Not too many of us can say that we have given back to our community to the extent that Mrs. Mosley have. And so I want to make sure you all come out and support this event. It's a fundraiser, as I said, and I'm going to keep saying that, because it is a fundraiser to make sure that we can maintain this important community asset, the home of Mrs. Ruth Hartley Mosley. And we have phenomenal vocalists in the name of Ron Campbell. Ron Campbell is a native of Macon, Georgia. He's currently living in Philadelphia, and he's a baritone bass vocalist. And he will be accompanied by none other than the phenomenal Mrs. Susan McDuffie. I'm sure you're familiar with that name. She's also a Maconite. She's a pianist and an organist, and she will be accompanying Ronald in this benefit concert. The concert will be held on Sunday, April the 7th at the historic Stewart Chapel Church. And this is the church Mrs. Mosley attended during her lifetime here in Macon, Georgia. So we really want to just pay homage to Mrs. Mosley and the legacy and the desire and the dream that she have left for this community. As I said before, it was Mrs. Mosley's wish to give back to the community that gave to her. So now I think it's our time to give back to the woman that gave so much of herself to our community.
Oh, I'm excited already. You know, I started hitting me one of those bass tones, but I'm gonna leave that up to Mr. Campbell. Now, give the date and the time again.
Okay, the date again is Sunday, April 7th, 5:30 p.m. Stewart Chapel Church, that's on 887 Forsyth Street, right here in Macon, Georgia, right behind the home of Mrs. Ruth Hartley Mosley.
What time?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock? So that's Sunday, April the 7th, at Stewart Chapel at 5 p.m., and we're looking for the entire community to come out and support this fundraiser. This is a phenomenal and a historic home, and it's all of our responsibility to support it, and so we can honor the legend and continue the legacy. So I'll see you there.